lineup for you tonight. We've got Kshira from Datalicious. He's the head of insights. We have Neil, the CMO of bench marketing, and we also have Benjamin from Atlassian, who is also going to be presenting. So I'm Olivia. I'm one of the organizers at Sydney Growth Hackers. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or on my blog, fflbrandmarketing.com. Love to hear from you and connect. And also, as you know, our community is growing really, really fast. Like, this is Growth Hackers number 7. So you can see that our number of members is growing pretty quickly. We leveled off a little bit, but I think we're picking up some steam again, which is fantastic to see. And we had 218 people register for tonight, and we've had 97 turnout. So thanks for coming. And also, as a reminder, we have a Facebook group. If you just Google Sydney Growth Hackers, you can join, and that's a really great place to share ideas, or maybe you've seen a blog that you think is fantastic. So you can collaborate and comment and learn from each other on the Facebook group. So yeah, let's get into this. So the Twitter handle is @SydneyGrowth. So you can hashtag GHSydney as well to stay on the pulse. And also, we have to, we're very, very grateful to Atlassian for hosting this. They sponsor the event and open up their offices, and I don't know if you've noticed, but we're in a bigger room this time. So this is newly renovated, so we have this fantastic place for this evening to hear from our speakers. So a huge thank you to Atlassian for putting this all on. Otherwise, I don't think this would really be possible. So thanks there. So let's begin. If you have any questions, feel free to email myself or Dan is one of the other organizers. So the first speaker is Kshira Saagar. He's been working as a data scientist for over a decade to solve digital analytics challenges in the retail and marketing space for some of the world's largest brands. He has also experience in personalization, measuring cross-channel, cross-device marketing, and creating new benchmarks for customer engagement and performance. Kshira is the head of insights at Datalicious, so they're a fantastic startup in Sydney, and they've really pushed the boundaries on bridging, I guess, like out of home or online to offline. And if any of you have worked in that space, you know how notoriously hard it is to marry those two together. So Datalicious has done some fantastic work in that. So please join me in welcoming Kshira to share on hacking cross-device identification and how to tie online and offline customer actions together.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Am I loud enough? No? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I hear myself, so I was just being selfish. Thank you for being here. My name is Kshira Saagar. Sometimes I forget the name myself, so the K is silent, and there's a lot of complications after that. So I work at Datalicious. Datalicious is a data-driven marketing analytics company out here in Sydney. We work primarily on the digital side, but there's always the question, whenever we go to a meeting and we present something, we tell them, we know how your attribution model works, we know which channel is effective, we know what's happening, and everybody's going to always say, oh, by the way, all of this is just one part of the marketing scope. We spend so much money on TV, radio, out of home. You guys are not even good enough. So that's always been a problem, and that's always been a gap. So we've tried to come up with some hacks to quickly answer that question, and we also have a detailed way of doing it. So I'm going to present the hack first, and then I'll probably go into the detailed way of doing it. If you can't understand what I'm saying, if you find my accent funny, please excuse me. Don't throw stuff at me. And if you feel I'm very fast, as if I'm being chased by a bullet train, please feel free to stop me, because I tend to get over myself. There's no filter between my mouth and my mind, so I just tend to say things that are not supposed to be said. And for the record, I'm wearing this coat because it's cold and not because I want to show off. Okay, so I call it welding offline and online, because welding, as you know, is not a very happy, it depends on who you are. It's not a very neat looking process. There's a lot of different heat. You need to apply a lot of heat. You need to like force two things to join together that would never join in real life. So joining the online and offline world, as much as it sounds like science fiction and minority report, there's a lot of work behind it. So that's why I call it welding online and offline. Okay, so this is going to be the agenda. We're going to have a flashback. There's going to be no introduction. We're going to talk about what the hack is. So I'm going to talk to you about what exactly it was before I tell you how it was done, and then so what can be done on the basis of that. So what do we do? So you've done this, so how can I use it? That's always going to be the question. So what can I do with it? And if you have any questions, and if you're still awake by then, yeah, these are the questions here. So quickly, yesterday evening I had to do this, what is growth hacking? So I had to do this search on Google, and there was a 10 lessons, like a 10 chapter website on quick spring or something that said, what is a growth hacking? Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and I just had to make sure that what I'm talking about is actually growth hacking and not some random hacking. So let me tell you, I actually have a certificate now from that website which says I'm a growth hacker. So I'm going to put it on my LinkedIn page. So I was just reading up on some interesting things before I bore you with the actual digital stuff. I'm sure all of you watch MasterChef here, like my teammate here watches MasterChef here, and I found out, all of you have seen about this Michelin star restaurants, yeah? You've all heard of this Michelin star restaurants being awarded and all that stuff. Have you ever wondered how this Michelin star started? Does anyone know how this Michelin star thing started?
Yeah. It was for a car company and they wanted to encourage people to drive.
Yeah, so it's basically
a restaurant guy.
Yeah, so it's basically the Michelin tire company, and they wanted to increase their sales of tires, so they wanted people to use more cars, so the tires would get worn off easily. So they made a guide in France that had a list of all hotels in different places, so people could drive around and therefore like buy more tires and whatever it is. So it's a simple form of growth hacking in the offline world, if you want to call it that. But it's a very interesting example of how a company that has nothing to do with hotels and nothing to do with any of that business came up with a hack to do stuff. Okay, flashback. So we did a study recently. What you see on the left is Asia market, and what you see on the right is the Australia-New Zealand market. I call it flashback because, no offense to anyone, but Asia in terms of digital marketing is probably 5 to 6 years behind Australia, New Zealand, or any other developed market, right? So if you think about it, the red line is the amount of money you spend in that particular channel, and the black line is the amount of time people actually spend on the channel, right? It's amount of money spent versus time spent by people. So if you look at the right one, so this is left, yeah. On the left one, on the Asia side, you see that there's a lot of disparity between where people spend time and where money is spent. So people spend a lot of time in the offline world and very less time in the online world, but the money spent is exactly the other way around. In Asia, almost all the money is being spent in the online world, and very little money is being spent in the offline world because they think that they've all gone offline, right? So that's what's happening. So there's no balance there. What's happening in the Australian New Zealand market, interestingly, is there is some kind of balance, but it's the other way around. Although people still spend a lot of time offline, although people don't spend a lot of time offline, the amount of money spent is much lower. So the idea, what I'm trying to say here is, this was what you see on the left was a disparity that was there in Australia and New Zealand probably 5 to 6 years from now. What you see on the right is what's happening now. So people have a wrong perception of where people spend time and effort on, and they end up spending money on the wrong side. So to always answer this question, how do I make this equal? How do I spend equal amounts of money on both channels? Is why we came up with this hack. So okay, what's the hack? Okay, so what we did was anybody who was a customer, irrespective of if it was an online customer or an offline customer or whatever customer, everybody gets sent a welcome email. So let's take the example. Let's just assume it's a telecom company here, right? So all of them get sent a welcome email. They say, oh, welcome to company X, you bought a new plan, blah, 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 and let's say on an average X% of people click on it. Typically what happens, out of all the people who get a welcome email, or let's say for the sake of example, 27% of them were online customers and 73% were actually offline customers. This looks like a standard split across almost all the industries. Only 25 to 30% of people are online and almost 70% of people are offline customers. So basically all the online marketing activity that the digital marketers do here are totally gone waste because the people end up buying offline. So you can't take credit for this 73% of the people. So how do I take credit for them? What typically happens is out of this 27% of people, we know for a fact, let's say 6% of people directly visit the website and therefore make a purchase, and 21% of the people who purchase online have had some form of display campaigns, SEO campaigns, blah, blah, and I can figure all of this out. And I know that 21% of my entire customer base were influenced by digital marketing campaigns, right? So I spend money and time and effort on the digital world. I do digital ads, I do search ads, I send them emails, I send them whatever it is, SMSs, targeted marketing and all of this stuff, and only 21% I can take credit for. Now that's not good enough for me. As a digital marketing team, I need to go to my boss and tell, actually I'm driving more business, so how do I do that? I know in the offline world, again, there are 28% of people who are new visitors and offline customers, and 45% of the people who are repeat visitors and offline customers. Now, the question is, how do I find out this 45% of the people who are offline customers have visited my site? How do I find that out? Right, that's the question. How do I find that this 45% of the people who had converted offline have actually been influenced by an online channel? I'll come to that later. And so let's say I have somehow figured out magically the hack. I figured out this 45% of the people who had converted offline have also seen some kind of online marketing activity. I again break them down and I see that a big chunk, 35% of the people who actually ended up converting offline had some kind of online marketing activity. Now I'll tell you how I did that, but before going there, what ends up happening is you usually take credit for 25% of your customers who convert and end up buying online, but I can actually take credit for 56% of my customers because of your marketing activity. So what is the big deal because of this? The big deal is if you're an email marketing manager, if you're a display marketing manager, an SEO marketing manager, you can walk up to your boss, you can walk up to the CFO and say, I know my particular campaign actually drove X into 2.7 people more than what you already think actually happened. So that's a very powerful multiplier that digital marketing managers can use to make decisions. So how did I find this out? How did I find out this 45% of the people actually were offline customers who converted online? So that was the hack. Forget all of this is all boring. I would like now, okay. Right, so what happens is advertising happens. Let's say advertising happens on the one end from the marketers. People visit the website, blah, blah, blah. They end up buying an online item. Sometimes what happens is they end up buying an item in the store. They end up buying an item via phone, blah, blah, blah. All of this happens. So you lose out on all of these people, right? So you only take credit for the online people. But the beauty of this is because I send a welcome email here to all the people, irrespective of who they were, if they were retail sales, phone sales, online sales, I can send an email to all of them. And then I can trigger a virtual sale event because of that particular person, because of all of these people, and then I can merge it with my current sale event. So how do I do that virtual sale event based on an email or a login for that matter? I'll talk about that. It's just this. So it's a simple hack. What we do is, for example, all the people who receive welcome emails, all their welcome emails are tagged up, and all the welcome emails have like, hey, go to your account, hey, do something, hey, understand how your policy works, blah, blah, blah. You click on that link and it takes you to the website, right? When it takes you to the website, on the URL parameter, we have it, we can drop in UTM parameters and code and let's say this person was an offline customer, because the URL will be, whatever, the landing page URL can be custom coded on the email. It says this person was an offline customer and blah, 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 and therefore so on and so forth. So if I can tag up all my welcome emails with the proper UTM and offline purchase identification, that person, let's say, clicks on the welcome email on GA, for example, which is the simplest and easiest hack. In Google Analytics, what I can do is I can look at the referring URL, and in the referring URL, you will have that identification saying, this person was an offline customer who clicked on the email and therefore purchased. So you immediately, and in a very, very simple, easy hack way, get an identification or an understanding, at least an estimate of who are your offline customers who click on your emails and therefore come online and make a purchase, right? So how is this useful? How do I know that the person who opened an email and clicked and therefore came is actually a person who's seen stuff online? Is you can just set up a user ID feature in your Google Analytics. So what user ID does is it can track a particular person across time. So simple user ID feature will help you tell which person or which cookie was that actually tracked. Like if you take this referring URL from the page URL, you identify who are these offline customers. You filter those cookies out, you just match them with their previous activity, and if they've had an activity in any of these channels, you can automatically figure out that these are all the people who had an offline purchase but have also seen your stuff in the past. So you can figure this out. I'm not too sure if I was too clear about this, but if you have any questions,
when you say see, you mean like click, right? Like it's not just text and like you're going to click on.
Yeah, he has to click on the email, and on an average, we know that 10% of the people click on an email, so we can make that estimate.
How do you get the email from the offline customers?
So when people sign up, everybody signs up, gives their email address and phone number by default now. So all of them get an email. So
basically, when they buy for an offline, there's some kind of
they need to fill up a form like a customer identification form, and all of them get sent an email. And assuming they've browsed on the same device to do their research, they can be tracked offline. Any question? Yeah.
So you use approximation hacks to estimate the number of offline purchases with research online. Is that just previous market research saying this many people research online, or how do you do that?
No, so what I mean by use approximation hacks to guesstimate number of is basically to say, I know these user IDs. So when I mean guesstimate, I'm just saying guesstimate the bigger proportion. So you only 10% of the people or 15% of the people are going to click on an email. So you need to guesstimate and extrapolate for the remaining 80% of the people who don't click. And you can say, I know for a fact that X% of the people click and come, therefore the other people who have not clicked might also have done so and so activity, because the click rate is going to be same for the online and the offline. Yeah.
Could you know whether people have been online before if via the IP address?
Yeah. So the user ID here that I'm talking about is actually the cookie, which is a combination of IP address, browser fingerprint, and all of that stuff in Google Analytics.
Yeah, you can see whether they went to the website by clicking on the email, but then you can compare to the IP addresses of visitors beforehand, and then you match.
Yeah.
And you can see whether they've been there before.
Yeah. So, okay, let me just clarify. This seems very simple and silly because it is simple and silly, and it is just on GA. So what we also have is, if people want to actually go into the depths of it, when people typically ask us this question, can you tell us how much my offline marketing is worth? They do TV, they do out of home, they do all of these digital kiosks. They want to just understand how much it is worth. We can't tell you digital kiosk is worth X, TV is worth Y. We can only tell you offline is worth Y. If you want to break it down much deeper, what we do is actually the complicated one, which is not the simple one, is we have the media attribution model. So a media attribution model, what a media attribution model can do is it can understand a user's complete touch point. So we track a user, we track a real user, a cookie, and a cookie which can be matched across multiple devices based on a probabilistic stitching ID. We know that, let's say, person X, may I have your name please? Haida. So let's say I know Haida wants to buy a new iPhone. I know she's, let's say, a Telstra customer, right? I know she wants to buy a new iPhone. Using our model, so the GA one was a hack, but using our model, what we can do is we know Haida has a phone. She uses her phone X because we get that information from, say, let's say, Telstra. We know Haida searches for a new iPhone because a new iPhone is launching. So she's been searching fervently for the past 5-6 days. So we know it is her because of her cookie ID, because of IP address, and because that cookie ID also has a mapping at Telstra who know who she is. We also know Haida has seen all of these ads that pop up, retargeting ads and imaging ads and contextual ads and all Fairfax and Newspop and all of this stuff. I know she's seen all of these ads. I know which ads she's clicked, I know which ads she's viewed and which ads she's not viewed. I also know what SMSs she gets from Telstra in terms of offers because we integrate SMS. I also know what, let's say, emails she gets and which one she opens, which one she doesn't open. I also know when she walks into a store because all these stores are fitted with beacons now. So you can understand which store Haida's walked in because your phone will beep and it will tell you which store you walked in and if not walked in. I can tie all of this together. Plus, what I can do is if say Haida ends up buying an iPhone for a 2-year contract, let's say a $1,024 phone, what we can do is we know this $1,024 can be appropriately split to all of these different touchpoints. So instead of saying Haida finally on one fine Saturday morning decided to walk into the George Street store and buy a phone, it's not because of that, it was because she searched for the first 5 hours, she also saw a display ad, she then saw an email, then she got an SMS, blah, blah. So we attribute the $1,000 to all of these. Now that's just the simple part. The complicated part is what we do is we know Haida is, let's say, a 25 to 30-year-old person. We also know she lives in X. And based on that, we also know TV and radio, other publication agencies, which publish the stats from Nielsen, which say a 25 to 30-year-old person watched this particular TV slot at this particular time in this area for this particular percentage. So we know if Haida has expressed a certain kind of activity, she's been searching for something, and then after 2 days, she's not done any activity, and suddenly she comes back and searches for something, we know that her activity is not normal, it's not an organic progression towards a media exposure. She's had a gap and then she's had a media exposure again, and therefore we can artificially inject a touch point from the offline world which matches that socio-demographic pattern at that particular point in time, and therefore we... Sorry.
So you're saying Telco sends you all of this data?
Yeah, we can get pretty much all of this data.
It tells you?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm saying we can. I just said we do. We can, yeah.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. And we can sit all of this together, and what we can get is we don't get information on just how much offline works. We know exactly. She probably saw an ad on Telstra which was probably rude, and so she just didn't start, she stopped searching for stuff. And then she saw a TV ad which was probably more favorable, and then she came back again and started seeing stuff. So we can go at a creative and messaging level and say, these kind of marketing activity will pick people off and drive them to go offline, and these kind of marketing activity will drive people to convert online. So what kind of, oh sorry, there was a rainbow there, I forget it. So what kind of things can we look at, right? So all of this sounds like science fiction. How do we actually use this stuff, right? So what kind of things can we do? We can actually break it down at a channel level. So for example, the blue one is offline and the orange ones are online. So what it says here is people who do a lot of browsing online and end up buying offline, what kind of exposure do those people have? So those people who end up buying offline have a lot of exposure to emails, have a lot of exposure to display ads, and very little exposure to anything else compared to the people who buy online. So people who buy online have a lot of exposure to referral sites, affiliates, paid search, direct visits, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So you know which channels are driving your offline customers. So your offline customers are typically reading your emails, they're getting their information on their emails, and they're going buying offline. Your offline customers get a lot of display ads that retarget them, and then they end up going buying offline. So maybe your ads are not having enough call to action, your ads are probably not driving them to the site, it's just giving them the information and leaving them there, therefore they're going to the site. So you can change stuff at that level. Yep.
Is it experience? Do you have data that shows that people who buy offline are more likely to click an email?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So they are more likely to read an email and engage with an email. They are more likely to see display ads, and then they end up going buying offline. So what it eventually says subtly is they get their information, but their information is not making them take the next step of going to the site or making any other action. Unlike a referral, let's say comparethemarket.com or Cancer or any of that stuff, they are reference. They give you the information and they drive you to the site, so therefore people end up buying online. So they don't have the buyers to stop and go buy offline. Stuff like that. What you can also do is you can understand, let's say you have 5 different products, which product is more likely to be purchased offline versus purchased online. So for example, product 2 here has such a high difference between the offline and the online world. So what it says is product 2 is probably a high risk product. Or product 2 is the one that has a big PDS that you have to read and you have to understand how it works, blah, blah, blah. So people do a lot of research online and then they'll go end up buying offline. So how can you make that barrier less? Because getting a customer to buy online, you have the lower cost per acquisition than getting a customer to buy offline where you have a higher cost per acquisition. So how do you get people to buy online when you have an online book? How do you drive those people? What products are the bottlenecks, and how can you change the messaging or make it more easier, or probably change the design and stuff? What you can also do, it looks a little cluttered, but this is the time of the analysis. What it says is, for example, this one is the offline. People who do a lot of research online and end up buying offline are typically active in the evening. So see 19, 20 and 21, they're typically active in the evening. So these are people who come back home, who browse for stuff, who search for all of this, then end up going to the store the next day morning or whenever and then they buy. But people who do a lot of purchasing online, all these reds, they are people who are busy at work searching for stuff and then they end up buying at home. That's hypothetical. So it's very clear, this is during the work hour. For example, 19 or even like stuff like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, as long as you don't go to work till 10, which we don't. all of these people are browsing for stuff in the morning, and then during the day they end up going and buying stuff. So it validates exactly at what time of the day, on what day of the week, which product. You can do all of this together at one go and find out which product customers who buy a lot of stuff offline, when do they research, what do they research on, why do they research stuff. And what you can also find out is device types. This is a little boring, I really don't like. But for example, here you can see people who buy offline, which are the blue color people, are more likely to buy, people who buy offline are more likely to do their research on mobile devices and then buy offline. So, yes, sorry.
Just curious with the previous slide. So when you did the analysis, what kind of products did you research? So when you do the analysis, is it like very...
So we have a gamut of products. So for every client, so we do this for almost a lot of our clients, and for every client we have a list of products. There is the primary, like 80% product which gives you, like this 20% of products which give you 80% of revenue. We have those products as well, and we have the tail end products as well. So we put all of them in mixed. So we have all kinds of products. What this one says is people who end up buying offline do a lot of their online research on their phones, and this is very interesting considering they do a lot of their online research in the evenings. So they seem to be doing their research on their phones in the evenings for low risk, for very high risk products. So something's clearly not working out for this particular client. So you can understand what is happening and how can you change that messaging. What can you do to change people to directly buy online. So maybe the mobile site is not good enough for them to buy online or whatever it is, right? So you can understand stuff like that. And finally, what you can do is again break it down at a strategy level, understand which kind of display ads work better. Interestingly, if you look at it, people who buy offline get a lot of retargeting ads. And retargeting ads are stupid and silly, I'm sorry to say that, but retargeting ads are based on simple rules. If you visit a website, if you spend X minutes, you get a retargeting ad. I'm very sorry if I offended anyone. You get a retargeting ad, and then that retargeting ad has no rules or logic. For example, we talk to Pretty a lot, and they say that there are two things about retargeting ads. There's efficiency and efficacy. Efficiency is just because somebody's seen it, you just show them an ad. That's efficacy. But efficiency is showing it to the right person who has the previous potential to buy. So that is not there. So a lot of people who do their research online and end up buying offline see a lot of display retargeting ads. So you think display retargeting ads are good, but they're probably not good in this context. You need to change your messaging or make them more call to action and stuff like that. So that's another interesting one. Yeah, so those are the kind of things, and I just kept it at a dimension level because that will be interesting, but you can club all of them together, and then you can look at an entire journey of a product at any different level, at any creative level, and understand what is triggering a person to do their research online and end up buying offline, or what is triggering a person to do their research offline and end up buying online. We can do both kinds of the spectrum. The simple hack is to do a GA, send everyone a welcome email, and that would be the simplest hack. Anybody can do it. You can just go tomorrow morning and change your welcome emails and just put a link which will take you to a landing page. Set a simple GFP report, write and script an R or Python, set up that report. You will get a number that at least you can use as a multiplier and show your boss. But if you want to do a little more complicated stuff at a creative level, at a campaign level, you can do an attribution model, or you can start working at stitching things together at your own. So that's probably how we do it. Any other questions that you guys have on this? Yeah, I have 3 minutes. Sorry.
How do you know that an online customer, an online visitor walked into a shop?
So we know that person. So there's something called beacons, Internet of Things. So we know that person's phone device. So if you want to
So you use the GPS location?
So if you have a Wi-Fi and switched on, it will automatically connect you. We'll get a MAC ID for you. We know you are that person. So identifying a person is very, there's no privacy. So sorry. Hello. Yeah.
Sorry, that's only if you connect to the Wi-Fi in the store that you go to.
There are a lot of assumptions, right? At the end of the day, like I said, there are so many people who are smart, so many people who say, do not track me on Google Analytics, so many people who block their cookies, so many people who block their ads. There are a lot of smart people out there. According to, we are doing a study, and according to a study, 8% of Australians block 8% of Australians. Okay, sorry. According to a study, 8% of Australians block ads, which is kind of interesting given in the US I saw a recent study that said 32% of people are blocking their ads. So, through my voice, hopefully. Yeah, so we're trying to there are going to always be assumptions, and what we do is we take all of these assumptions, try to codify and quantify it, and say, hey, the result is X, by the way, the pinch of salt is Y, so take it with this pinch of salt. And at the end of the day, decisions are not going to wait for data. As long as you have good data that you can justify with, and you have a leading indicator that says your multiplier is X, so weird here. I don't think this likes me anymore. And a few of you here because I said weird things. But yeah, that's how we do. So that's how we stitch the online and offline world. We try to figure out some way of linking, giving everyone a common path, and therefore making everyone do the same thing at some level, which is hopefully the online level, and therefore switching them together. There are a lot of ways to do it. You can send them an email, you can ask them to log in, you can ask them to like fill up a survey form, which is the silliest way to do it. But there are so many ways to do it, and you can do it, and you can eventually understand how much of your offline marketing is influencing online people, and how much of your online marketing, which is important to you, which gets the lowest budget currently, which gets probably 25 to 30% of your budget. How do you take that 35% of your budget and make it 50%? Take credit for more people that you actually convert. If people say that your online marketing is not influencing people who purchase offline, they're being fooled. Nobody's not using a phone, so that's the simplest argument you can make, and nobody's not using the internet. And considering Australia has 96% internet penetration, almost everybody in the world, including the sheep, some of the sheep here, use internet. So everybody uses internet. So you can make a safe assumption that people who purchase offline have definitely an online. Any questions? Hello. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned a lot of like assumptions. I'm just wondering, and you said you quantified these assumptions. Like, how accurate is this?
So I think yeah. So I would in any other group I would have thrown an accuracy number and said 83% if I was selling something. But these things don't have an accuracy. They're at the end of the day assumptions. And more often than not, what we do is we do test and control exercises. We say this particular channel has 27% impact, and then we try to track it in a controlled environment. We try to send those people an email and try to see how many of them actually converted offline. So you can test them once you come up with a multiplier. You can test them in the real world with a test and control scenario, but there's no accuracy or anything because it's a continuously evolving model, continuously learns. I don't know if I answered your question.
I'm just wondering how you would actually track the
Okay, so for example, if you have to run a test and control exercise, and I tell you emails have 32 into whoever converts via email, whoever converts offline, have read email so many more times. So if you spend $200 in email, you can multiply it happily by 32 more, like 200 people convert via email. Online, in the online world, you can happily multiply that number by 32. So if I give you that number, you have to take the 32, let's say. What you can actually do is send all the people in a particular time frame, a particular campaign. That email can be completely tracked in the online. Even if they open their email, you can track them. And then we know if they end up buying on offline exactly that particular person for that particular email. We can see how much of people who opened that email actually bought online and actually bought offline. We can find that at that email level. Sorry, it's me plus my accent plus the phone. That's the offline one. Yeah. Sorry, I can actually explain. So, but basically the idea is we do a control test and control, whatever it is. Yes, situation we try to do. The bell's telling me to shut up and go away. Any more questions? If you believe that this is not possible, we can actually show you the exact workings of it, the model, how we simulate a virtual touch point and all of that stuff. But if you also believe that it works, more than happy to explain how the simple GA hack works. I think it's fairly straightforward what I said, you can also try it out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I think my email address is there, so you can reach out to me. No consulting, just free. Any questions? No? Can I go? Thank you.